Good afternoon out there in drumming world. How's everybody doing? This is Joe Bergamini here, coming to you once again for the Sabian Education Network with our SEN Roundtable on this Friday, September 4th, Labor Day weekend. Everybody's getting ready for a big weekend. So I'm really excited today. We have a wonderful panel. I just want to mention, in case any of you guys are I had mentioned last time that I had Brian Fraser-Moore scheduled. He got a gig with this person called Alicia Keys. I don't know who. I don't know what's up with that. And I said, what's going on? You could just bail on that. I want to have you on the SEN Live show. And we talked for a while, but anyway, I moved him back to October. So Brian will be back with us in October. But I got to move up into a really fun event today with some great friends. We're going to talk about everything related to drum teaching right now. So clockwise from the top, we'd like to welcome Mr. Tim Thompson from the Buffalo area. Hey, Tim.
Hey. Yeah. How you doing, guys? Thanks for having me.
Next to him from the Denver area, a previous guest on the SEN Educator Spotlight with Dom, Mr. Kevin Lehman.
Yeah.
Next to him on the top, of course, everyone knows Drumming's global ambassador, my co-host, mentor, teacher, and great friend, Mr. Dom Famularo.
Woo! Bring it on.
And down there next to me on the left, coming to us from Staten Island, New York, the great drummer, technological master, and SEN right-hand man for many years, Mr. Jim Toscano. Hey, Jim.
Yeah, Jim.
How you doing? Thanks for having me, Joe.
And my name is Johnny Carson. No, just kidding. So, and welcome, guys, all of our, I see Ross and Carlo, Claude, Jacob, Tony, a lot of our great regular, friends. Wish I could have 100 people on the screen because everybody deserves to be up there. But so, gents, I really just want to kick it off. And please type in your comments. Anthony, John, guys, all right. So many good guys coming in here. I just want to kick it off and talk about going forward now. We're coming into a new school year, one like no other with the pandemic. We've all been teaching online quite a ton. And I know for me, it's been, things have been picking up and I got some new students heading into the fall. So really, I would just like to kind of go around the horn, starting with Tim and, talk about what does your teaching practice look like right now heading into the fall? Are you doing virtual lessons? And, are things growing? What's your general outlook? So Tim, why don't you?
Right now I am still 100% online. We switched over in March and basically we're just kind of waiting until the school year started to see what the schools were going to be doing. Right now I'm prepared to bring students back here to the studio probably mid-September. We'll probably start out with mass, but really just it's kind of a waiting game right now just to see where the schools are with. As far as students and how the year has gone, it's funny. I lost a couple very young students. Online isn't very conducive for 4 or 5 year olds, and there was a couple teenagers that didn't like the online thing. But since then, I have actually started a number, 3 or 4 students 100% online who I've never met before. And, they were referred to me, through word of mouth, through, ads that I've run on Facebook and Instagram and communication, a lot of communication to the schools, because I try to stay in touch with the different school districts. And then they're out there recommending whenever, parents are asking. So I'm probably flat at this point. Going into the year here, going back to live, maybe we'll start picking up some more students.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, you know what? For us to maintain our business in this challenging time, a lot of other industries are not doing that. So I think that's great. Kevin, let's throw it over to you.
Okay, so I'm actually starting to move some students back into in-person learning. Majority is still online. I'm pretty consider myself pretty blessed. I pretty much kept all my students that I had before online and added a couple of new ones. I've got one gentleman that started taking lessons with me and then he moved out of state. So the nice thing is I get to keep teaching him. Have not, as Tim has experienced, I haven't necessarily advertised, hey, I'm going to be teaching on Facebook or whatever to get from outside of my area. So that might be on the next thing. I did find that a couple of students, one in particular, I have a young man who's autistic, and the online thing just really wasn't working for him. And so in Colorado here, we have mask orders, but we're pretty open. And so after talking with his mom, it just worked a lot better to bring him in person. So he was one of the first. So I have maybe 3 or 4, and I try and space them out to where it's not one after the other. So I'll just do one in-person lesson and then teach online. And that gives me a chance to kind of, wipe the studio down, the passing traffic. And then the other thing that I've got going on, as you know, is I teach at a drumline at the high school, a local high school. And so we've actually obviously working on getting that going. The school year has started again. We did rehearsals over the summer. We did a lot of Zoom rehearsals, which is tough because you can only have one mic on, but at least I could watch what their hands were doing. And then we started doing them in person again, and that's been great. And we have restrictions for how long we can meet. Obviously, we're keeping the distance. And then we have the school year actually starting in person. Right now, they're all doing online, but they start in person in 2 weeks. And the nice thing is that I'm going to have my line do like a little, the principal has our line doing a little intro for the whole school. So as the kids are coming back to school on the days they're doing it, we'll do a kind of little greeting thing. So it's kind of nice to give those kids something to work forward to and work towards.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Nice.
The outreach to the local schools, Dom, that's something we've always talked about, and both of these guys are using it to their advantage.
It really is so important. The school system, when you think about it, and let's go back to the mindset before the pandemic happened. The school system really is your feeder system. I mean, what you have in there is you got band directors that are firing up these kids in the music program. They're trying to look for as much enthusiasm and excitement as they can. And probably 99.9% of them are not percussionists. They took a percussion class at university. They might be horn players or woodwind players or keyboard players. So if we can come in and assist that band director by going into the school, again, this is before the pandemic, going into the school and taking their drum line and inspiring them and teaching them and giving them the proper techniques that we know we have learned in our time, it helps to make their drum line or their drum section better. And if you start working with their music that they're playing for the department, you take a sheet of music. I would look at a sheet of music and find out where the difficult passages were and rehearse that section on those difficult parts. So when they went to rehearse with the band later on that day, they'd be able to play their part easier. The band director felt that the percussion line got better. That showed value that I helped him out, and then he wanted me back. So in that time, that relationship was so great. Now I believe that during the pandemic, what I'm doing is my school here in Port Jefferson contacted me. They said, Dom, would you do a Zoom class for our percussion section in both elementary school, junior high school, and high school? I said, absolutely. And I said, I'll do it free. I don't want any money for it. So now I go on Zoom and I've got them all in different locations and I'm teaching them to inspire them, to keep them fired up. This is exciting and we're still making it work. So now, before the pandemic, I was there in person. Now we're doing it via Zoom. This is working perfectly well. It makes the band director's job easier. I can get more specific with hand technique, how to play that role, how to read certain passages. It works and it continues on. So I would ask all of you to reach out to the local band directors in your area and ask them how you can assist. Do it for nothing. Why you do it for nothing is just to get your foot in the door. Once that band director feels the value of what you offer, that person needs you. That turns it around, the relationship where all of a sudden now they start calling you. Then they start recommending students. They recommend the students online through Zoom. That works out well. And then when we get back into in-person lessons, you're going to have built your teaching practice up. It always works. The school system is your feeder system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And
Absolutely.
I think we found that, when you dive in with the technology stuff, Dom, great idea about the Zoom class. You can replicate the model that, for instance, you trained me and I think Jim and a couple of the other guys with of making the band director your feeder system. you don't have to go in. You can do it with the Zoom class. So I think the funny thing is the outreach that we talked about in previous sessions, where you can just get a database of all your local band directors. And even if you don't know them, approach them professionally with an email. All the school districts have the listing of the teachers. It's public information, right? So in a respectful way, you can send out an email to those, if you're going to do I always thought, like, if I'm going to do a free class, I drew like maybe a 15-mile radius around my house. I figured that's a good radius for people to come. In my area, New Jersey, I mean, there's dozens of schools in that radius. So you make that list and you send out some respectful emails to those band directors. And I always just reinforce not to be disappointed if they don't get back to you right away, because my wife's a band director. She's swamped getting ready for the new year online. So Tim, you had a comment on that?
Just to hitchhike on that, just involvement with your county and state music educator associations. Here in New York, it's NYSMA. Locally, I have Erie County Music Educators, ECMEA. So if you're involved with them, in most cases, they have the database of all the directors in the member schools. And that has helped quite a bit just in my communication and collaboration with a lot of the different music directors and band directors.
Dom?
I want to hitchhike on Tim's hitchhike. On this process, when you email the band director, state clearly that you are here to help. Don't try and sell yourself. Don't try and push your agenda on them. How can I help? I want to help your percussionists get education during this trying time. I want to assist, no charge. I'm reaching out to assist you and any of your drummers in any way. Offer your service with no ulterior motive behind that.
Yeah. Great advice. Jim, let's throw it to you to give a little update. And Jim, since I know you teach all levels, maybe you could comment on the different parts of your practice, like you see increasing or decreasing. I'm talking about kids, high school age, the pros and the weekend warriors that you teach. How's the outlook for you?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, thanks for having me. And basically I would say I feel really fortunate because I'm actually busier now than I think I've ever been. And part of that, I have to blame Dom for that. And you, Joe, because you keep sending me technology students. But the technology coaching has sort of become, another part of my teaching practice. So not only am I teaching all different levels of drumming and drum teachers that are trying to grow their business, even the business skills that go with that, now I'm teaching all the technology stuff. So that's become really paramount in my teaching practice. And I would say that, I've really tried to use technology to my advantage, doing live streams, doing online master classes, group lessons on Zoom, individual lessons on Zoom. So I've really tried to embrace it as much as possible and help other drum instructors embrace all the technology and get better at it. And so, I feel really blessed in the place that I'm in right now, but it's definitely grown. And for drum students, often I'll have a technology student come to me, and then before I know it, I'm doing drum lessons as well with that student. And what's great is it's international. So, as with Dom, Dom will start 7, 8 in the morning. We do the international students and then into the evening, and then you're teaching your West Coast students by the night, so you can stay as busy as you like if you kind of expand your the amount of clocks that you read. So,
and what Jim has done, which is so great, is Jim now has become a technologist consultant.
Yeah.
So this is technology consultation. This is a whole nother hat that he has to wear. I've got many students and top professionals that I've sent to Jim. He's helped Dave Weckel, he's helped Carmine Appice, he's helped David Garibaldi. He's got some serious guys that he's assisting with their studio setup, and he helped me tremendously here. I mean, in the old days, my switcher that I had was the size of my mailbox. Now, because of Jim, my switcher is the size of my phone. So, I mean, I upgraded all the technology, so it makes it much easier to accommodate all of what we're doing now.
Yeah, the technology has changed so incredibly in the last decade, right, Tom? When we started working kind of on some of these ideas together, we were using those security switchers, and it looked like security footage. And now we're using all these high definition cameras and all this great technology so that we can bring to the student a really different experience and something that feels great to them and is on a professional level. So
yeah. Absolutely. Ross, I think we all agree with that. Ross Amoroso, one of our great members and always attending. That's great. And I just want to show.
Russ is setting up his studio. Russ is not doing some lessons with me. He's setting up his studio now where he's shifting things around in his home and putting together a fantastic studio with cameras and mics and stuff. It's looking great.
Yep.
Yeah. For Ross, we basically started over with everything. So I got him into a new Mac, the Mac Mini, which I keep recommending to people. So we got a Mac Mini, we got a camera switcher, we have cameras, we have audio interface, microphones. He redid his entire thing, and he moved it in his house to a different location, which was on Dom's prompting. And Ross is doing a great job.
That's great. Yeah. Kevin and Tim, I think you guys both had comments, right? Tim, you first?
Yeah, just to give Jim a plug, even just some of the advice that he has given in a lot of the Sabian, videos and programs that the Education Network has helped me immensely. I mean, Jim, applause to you.
Really?
I certainly do not have the budget to go, big like a lot of the other professional drum teachers that might be teaching internationally. But where you have helped me is just to kind of understand the basics. I picked up an ATM Mini. I'm using, GoPros and Zoom Q2s now. I started messing around with some of the mics, though initially I got myself wrapped up with, trying to get the audio so perfect. But what I began to realize in March, as I started to teach online, and again, I had never taught online ever. All right. It was all new to me. And you can imagine in a couple months, that I have all this is quite the learning curve. As I began to work with audio, I realized that a lot of times, as good as my audio would be, the students on their end, their audio was not so good. So as long as they could hear me clearly and give me the ability to teach, during online lessons, I kind of accepted that. So that's why I have simply stayed with one mic at this point. But, I'm slowly moving on to where I'm going to start putting multi-mic systems, with a board and interface to make it a better product, something that's going to enhance the experience for the students. So thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Great point. Kevin, go ahead.
So I'm going to keep the Jimmy Toscano love train going here.
There you go.
First of all, Jim reached out to a couple platforms that I host. I host something on Facebook called the Wilcox Rudimental Challenge, and he's reached out to that and mentioned the newest upgrade to Zoom and it taking away some of the audio limiting things. And sure enough, 2 days later, I get an email from Zoom that they're going to update it. And I'm like, no, don't do that. So that was great that he's always putting that information out there. And I wouldn't have known, I would have just said, click, okay, update. And then I would have had problems and not known why. So Jimmy, that's awesome. And then Jimmy, I was also going to say, you do like a weekly live stream of like hand workshops, don't you?
Yeah, I do 2 live streams. Monday night, I do drum set skills, and Thursday nights, both at 7 p.m. Thursday nights, I do the hand technique workshop, and that's a free resource that, any drummer, I have drum instructors coming in and drummers coming in. It's really fun.
What kind of participation do you get in that?
I'm sorry?
What kind of participation do you get in that?
So the Zoom class is usually like 7 of my hardcore students that do it every single week, that have done it. It used to be a live event that I did weekly, and now it's an online event. And so, a lot of the same people come in every week. Ross Amoroso has been coming every week. And so we, drum instructors and drum students, and we play together. And then it's really, however many people pop into the live, which can be from, 4 people to some nights we have a pretty good showing of like 30 people. So, it really depends on how many people pop in and how well I advertise it, coming up to the week. So,
right.
Yeah.
Let's, Jim, actually, we've skirted around the technology stuff, and I want to give you the floor in a few minutes. But before I do that, there's a great comment from our friend Jim Killian here. Stoking the flames inside the beginners and the youngsters is imperative. We know that, and that's we're all passionate about doing that. And it's a great comment, Jim. What I wanted to ask around the horn, just raise your hand if you have an idea. I know Dom and I particularly, and maybe you guys, we've taken on some younger students. I have a couple of young kids now in the 8-9-year-old range, which I'm really enjoying. But I'm realizing that, I need to have a different approach. So if anybody has a good tip or two for keeping the young kids, I'm talking about 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, engaged when you have them online. Anybody? Jim?
I would say, for one thing, find where their interest lies musically. So I try to tie things into the music that they enjoy. And part of keeping them engaged is finding what inside of them is driving them to do this, right, in the first place. So I have this young student, Lucia, that she loves Tom Petty. So when we do our hand workout, we put it to Tom Petty songs. So we just put the music on instead of a metronome, and we play to songs doing all the rolls. So you just have to get inventive, especially with the younger ones, and try to find out what makes them tick, that individual tick. And I will tell you, I teach one student that's a young student who has Down syndrome, and he loves Bill Withers, of all musicians. And so we play to Bill Withers tunes when we do sticking. So we'll put on stick control and we'll play paradiddles along with Bill Withers tunes. So there's a lot of ways to kind of get inside and find out how they tick, but you just have to be creative.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Kevin first?
All right. So two things mostly I do, and I may have mentioned this last time we did one of these, is I find myself doing a lot of post-lesson work, a lot of recordings, so that they can have a continual view. A lot of times they can see it easier. I've got a camera right above here that shoots down. They can see what my feet are doing. So if they're struggling with a particular pattern, I try and give them as many resources to watch and see, because that lack of being able to do that in person during the lesson, I think I try to make up for that with and I do that with all my students, but I think the young students in particular, with not having as much experience with it, it works really, really well to demonstrate. Play it for them, talk through it, and give them something they can keep coming back to reinforce as they're practicing. And the other thing is I try to just make it a half-hour conversation. I try to have a lot of energy. I ask how they're doing. Most of them I know by now, how their tennis match went, what else was going on. You get to know them, their sense of humor, and just really keep them engaged, keep it positive. Really praise a lot. When they get something, really praise a lot, so that they're feeling like they're accomplishing it. And then the other thing I do is I reach out to the parents. Are they getting it? Or what is the feedback that they're giving you? Did they have a good time? That's how I realized it was going to be really important to move the young man, the autistic student, back to in person as soon as possible, because I reached out to his mom. I'm like, I don't know that he's really, getting a lot out of this. And she said, yeah, he mentioned it wasn't a lot of fun. So, really just kind of keeping them engaged, being positive, and again, like we all do in our in-person lessons, connecting with them beyond just drumming stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Great. I've noticed that I have two younger students that are 8 years old, and one of the parents stays in the lesson with the student and the other one doesn't. And what I noticed is that there's advantages and disadvantages to both of those things. And sometimes one of the disadvantages is if, in this case, the dad is still in the lesson and he's really enthusiastic. And I think he's also secretly taking lessons at the lesson. But he'll understand what I'm asking his son to do. But his son's coordination, of course, because he's 8 years old, isn't quite there yet. So sometimes the dad he'll get it and he'll try to explain in real time to the son what I'm doing, and so it's an interesting dynamic, like learning. I love that his dad is there. So but I also don't mind the other student who the parent's not there is so much fun, and they want a longer lesson, and sometimes he'll need a mental break. He'll be playing stuff and he'll be like, looking in the camera, like he just needs a little break. And you just when you're teaching prose and everything, you get so, I love doing this and I try to do it at a high level, but like with this young kid, I'm just having fun. I actually love it and when he does that. And to your point, guys, I keep in touch with the parents and they report back that he loves it. So if he needs a break and he just makes faces for a few minutes, I've learned like that's his signal to me, like, hey man, all right, let me just decompress for a second. And then he comes back the next week and he does what I asked. So it's been a fun process, you know?
Yeah.
One of you guys had, Kevin, did you have a comment there?
I was just going to say, one of the things that you were saying, I have so many young students whose parents wish they played drums. And so this is like their chance to be excited. So it's just like, well, now I'm going to buy a drum set for my kid, but I'm going to get to play on it too. So it's kind of neat to see a lot of the kids that or a lot of the parents that grew up wanting to play drums but never had the opportunity. You know, they're really excited about their kid doing it because then they get to have a little fun with it as well. So
Yeah.
Dom, what about
Yeah,
you? What have you gotten from the young kids?
You know, it's kind of interesting with these. I took 2 young kids and I took a child that has cerebral palsy from North Carolina, Daniel Segres. He's a wonderful, wonderful player. And he's about 16 years old. The other 2 students are 10 years old each. And what I do is I kind of use the Montessori and the Suzuki method where the parents have to be in the room. They have to be involved in the lesson to see how their student listens, how their student learns. And I've got questions to ask them about their student while it's happening. And they need to know the lesson, so they need to know how to assist them in the practicing process. And I make the parents, whether the mother or the father, take notes on the section. So if we work on a pattern at a certain metronome marking, it becomes fun. The parent writes it down. They know exactly where that student is at. If the parent is equally involved, this is why I think many of the Asian students that we have seen, they are so talented because the parents are fully invested into the child's education of the instrument. They're into it. They know the kind of heads, the sticks, the strings, the kind of violin. They're totally into it. So they have that level of involvement, which can only help the student feel more comfortable and keep the student's attention span more focused. If the students start to kind of freak out a little because of a half an hour or an hour lesson, the parent is right there to also kind of help to guide the student to, you know, reel them back in. It's a young mind, but I did this for nothing, just so I can learn and get back into, you know, I just celebrated, my birthday, which was 50 years of me teaching since the age of 17. 50 years.
Wow.
50 years, I'm still taking on these young students to continue to learn, to see what I can further understand about where the mindset is about these young kids, and it's absolutely fun.
Dom, your spirit is eternally young. You're such an inspiration to all of us guys. You know, I find myself reminding myself. Well, first of all, I remind myself how old I am, but certainly remind myself how old you are, because you just act so young. And it's just awesome. It's just awesome.
Well, listen, there's tons of opportunity here. And what I want you to mention too is that now the global reach, I mean, even Tim, you're in Buffalo, Kevin, where you're in Colorado, Jim in Staten Island, Joe in New Jersey. The world is at your demand right now. It's the complete global, and because of this technology that we have. I gave master classes last week with Klaus Hester in Germany, in Russia, with Maxim Diomin in the Ukraine, with Simon is a phenomenal drummer in Poland to his camp, and the US. So I gave 5 classes last week that were exciting master classes, all via Zoom this way, performing on my kid, talking about hand technique. It was interactive. They had questions. It was exciting. So this whole online mentality, there's actually, if you get a chance to read this issue of Modern Drummer, there's some great information on online teaching. And it's got myself and Dave Weckel and Russ Miller and Don Lombardi on the cover this year, where it's about online education. This is a great issue of real good insight to online education. And I think that's kind of where we are all right now. And I think this is now this new normal. Even when we go back, I think we're still going to have this process. So, you know, get with Toscano, get your gear together, figure it all out, and hop aboard.
Absolutely. There was some great comments. So many of our audience and guys who are participating and girls who are participating out there. John Gill absolutely agreed here, making sure the young kids are having fun and, agreeing with a lot of what Kevin says. So that's great. Our friend Claude Hoffman from France. We have a lot of great worldwide teachers. Again, I wish I could have everybody on the screen. This is a great tip. Making sure that the parents are involved, even if they don't stay in the room, with making sure that the hardware is set up so that their focus is right. That's a really great tip.
And Claude too, who happens to be from Belgium, teaches not only in Belgium but in Luxembourg. A phenomenal player. He flew here several times to take lessons with me. Came here and took some lessons. We've done several lessons online. Very proactive teacher, and he's got a lot of great things going on.
And Carlos Avatara, who was our SEN featured teacher a couple of months ago, really one of our leading SEN members over in Italy. And he's always coming at me with great ideas. He actually hit me with a great idea this morning, which I can't divulge yet until we roll it out. But we're trying to think about getting more of our international members involved in a bigger way. So, okay, it's 2:30 already. Geez, it's so much fun hanging out with my friends. It goes by so fast. Let's cut right to this here because I know everybody's waiting. Steve Ebe, I hope I pronounced your name right, Steve Ebe. Everybody's wondering about what's going on with Zoom. We're all using it, so I'm gonna lob a hamburger up to Jim Toscano and let him take this one. All right, Jim, go ahead.
Okay, so many of you have probably noticed that Zoom has done several updates over the last month. So, and I'm just going to preface this, and I said this yesterday. I did the O for Drum's Sake show with Janine and John Gill and Bobby Angeletta over on Instagram, and we were talking about updates on software. So the first recommendation is don't just blindly always update software because they say you need to update. Wait and find out what the update is, what the fixes are, what it's going to do to the software. Because if you update the software, oftentimes we don't save the previous version's file, and then you update it, and now you may lose a setting that you like in that software, which I'm about to talk about. So just always be careful when you do updates. I won't update Logic until I see what the fixes are and what the bugs are, because usually very shortly after the update, there's another update. So it'll be, 8.2.1 and then 8.2.2. And so, you kind of wait for the bugs to get worked out. So anyway, so what Zoom did was from 5.1.2, they went up to 5.2 originally, and then 5.2.1, and they took away the setting to disable intermittent and persistent background noise, which, as we always talked about on the SEN panels, for musicians, that's one of the most important settings, right? So being able to disable the suppression because we are using instruments that we hit. We're making noise on purpose, technically. So whereas in a conference setting, because Zoom is really a conferencing software, it's made for speaking, when your voice would take a lull or drop, the microphones will come down. And then as you start to speak, they come back up, which works for speaking, but it doesn't work so well for playing music. So every time that we would hit, it would squash that sound, right? So we were able to disable that. They took away that option. So at first, the first update, all of the noise suppression disappeared completely. Then they came back with auto, low, medium, and high for the suppression. So then once they did that, a lot of people had noticed that all of a sudden their sound wasn't working very well. So I and others that I encouraged to do this reached out to Zoom to try to ask them to do something about that, because we all rely on that for our livelihood. One thing I will say, though, is that make sure you're using original sound when you're in the Zoom platform. You'll see, I wonder, well, I'm gonna show you something in just a moment on the shared screen. But we need to enable original sound. And what that does is it turns off the compression anyway, okay? So always use original sound, which is gonna go to, if you're using external microphones or interfaces, it's gonna use the sound from that. Now, Zoom then, after all these emails, and they were talking with me, I think that they realized I had a lot of people's ears. Then they put up a new update, which now you can put in a music sort of version of, I think they call it high fidelity sound option, which I'll show you, which is inside the program now. So that has become a new option. However, that is very CPU demanding and bandwidth demanding, meaning if you enable that feature to have high fidelity audio, it will use more bandwidth. And if you're on a Wi-Fi connection, that could become problematic.
Yeah.
So in that event, if you're going to use the new settings, I would say make sure you're on an Ethernet connection. And, you know, I always use Stanton Moore as an example. I said to him, you must be on Ethernet. I said, if you're going to live stream, we have to get you on Ethernet. He ran 200 feet of Ethernet cable through cement walls into his warehouse where his drum room is set up and connected his Ethernet. So if there's a will, there's a way. I say do it. If you have to run 200 feet of cable, do it. Ethernet, you can do long runs. So I had Carl Allen running it through his house and up his staircase and into his room. So try to get on Ethernet if you can. And another thing I want to talk about real quickly, if I have time, for the Zoom settings is this. So if you're going to use the new Zoom setting, if you update it already, make sure that you try those couple of things. Set the background noise, you know, the compression to low, and then use original sound. Those are the two best practices for the new settings. And then if you go to the high fidelity audio, make sure you're on Ethernet. Now, one other thing, if you have students that are on iPads, and this is a hack that my student Pat Ross told me about, he found a video, I didn't know about this until recently, that if you're on an iPad, oftentimes you'll say to your student like, oh, go look in the sound settings. There's no sound settings, right, on iPad. So you have to have them go into their account, and I'm going to show you on the shared screen. If you could share that, Joe. You have the student log into their account on a browser. And so you have to go into the account, you go on the browser, and then you click on the meetings tab. And my mouse is like on a screen somewhere in the room. Hold on one second. I'm trying to get it onto the right monitor. Okay. So what you do is you go to the meetings tab after you're signed in, and then you're going to scroll down to, settings, sorry. Go to the settings, under the meeting tab in settings. And you're going to scroll down, down, down near the bottom. And there's a setting in here which is going to allow original sound to show up on these other platforms. So like iPad, iPhone. So see here, it says allow users to select original sound in their client settings. So this one right here, I'm going to turn it on right now. See that? On. And then over here, allow users to select stereo audio in their client settings. Okay. So those are now in my settings. Now what that will do is if they do this inside of their account, when they go back to the iPad, it's going to put those settings into their desktop client, app of Zoom. The only thing is, the trick is they have to delete Zoom and then re-download Zoom, and then those settings will now be in there. And your students will finally have better sound for you to hear, because it'll shut off the suppression when they use original sound. But you will have to remind them, especially the younger ones, make sure you turn on original sound. And it will be on the iPad, there's the three little bubbles, the three dots at the top where it says more. They'll be able to click on that and turn on original sound. So this is huge for kids that are using tablets, iPads, iPhones, Android devices. This is a huge thing. So this is a game changer, I think, for us. So anyway, so I wanted to make sure that everybody knew about that.
Oh, did I take that down too soon, Jim?
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And there's a video of a piano teacher that was explaining this, and that's where I found out about it. And I can find you that link, Joe. I guess I could send it to you at the end. Is that cool?
Okay. Yeah, that's
So
good.
it's a YouTube link for this very thing that we talked about, for turning on an original sound for tablets. So,
And just Jim, in the on the phone, I have some students using the iPhone. All this stuff it'll show up in their meeting settings, right?
yes, it'll show up in the meeting settings. So if it's not there already, So if they go to the meeting settings, in that list, it should say enable original sound. If the setting isn't there, they go to the browser, sign into the Zoom account. If it's a kid, they're going to have their parents' help. Turn on that setting that I just showed you inside of the browser, and then delete the app, re-download the app, and then the setting will be there. If they don't delete it, it's not going to update with that. So it's not an automatic thing. So they'll have to delete the app, re-download the app. And as far as iPhone, if you hold down the app icon, they start to wiggle. Hit the X, it'll disappear. Go to the App Store, go to Zoom, re-download the app, and then that setting should be there.
That's great.
Okay.
People love you, Jim. Javier Estrada, great comment. Look at that.
Holy mac. This feels like I just went through a colonoscopy again.
Well, hopefully it was a little more pleasant than that. But hey, we're learning. We're all learning the different tech stuff. It's funny with Zoom because I definitely have switched back. I'm still using Skype and Zoom equally. I find Skype, with sometimes it's just a little easier to get the sound thing going on the student's end. And my workaround, Jim, with now using Black Hole instead of Soundflower it still works fine. I found that like Latiocast is a little buggy. You have to like reboot it sometimes.
Yeah.
But overall, it's like it gets the student going like immediately. And then I just want them to have good sound from me so that it's clear. I think that's an important factor. So are you guys, just by show of hands, who's still using Skype as well?
A couple students.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Mainly Skype shows up for me for mainly coaching students, but I find that usually when I'm coaching someone and they see the advantages on the Zoom side, just as far as, if you have an interface like a Focusrite 18i20, all 8 channels will show up in Zoom if you're on a Mac. If you're in Skype, all 8 channels are not going to show up without the use of Black Hole and Latiocast, right? So there's always that introduction of software on the Skype side versus you could really use hardware on the Zoom side. So it's just 2 different workflows, and they both work. Not as much in the Windows world as easily, but on the Mac side, it's much better.
Jim, that's so funny. I was racking my brain because I told some of my students bought Focusrite and PreSonus interfaces, and I have a PreSonus, and I'm like, what? Like when I'm in Zoom, I just see my interface and I click it and all the channels come up. But I didn't know that the PreSonus interfaces are not plug and play with Windows. They're only with Mac. So you're seeing my students like, I see like channel 8.2, and I'm like, I don't know. And now I know he's. So I don't know how to work them around that for that, actually.
Yeah, unfortunately. And, I always preface, if you're doing music and you're a teacher, really think about investing in a Mac. And if you don't have one already, because the Windows world is just not as conducive to audio and video the way that Macs are set up. And I will tell you that the same thing happened recently with a coaching student that bought a PreSonus, a Behringer, actually. A Behringer channel strip was supposed to be just like a Focusrite, hooked it up in Windows. The drivers wouldn't find it. He had to delete the Windows drivers, reinstall the Windows drivers, and then actually put in a piece of software to try to route the rest of his audio. It's always an issue. So Mac is what I tell people all the time.
Right.
Yeah. I had the same.
Don
ahead,
first,
Jim.
then okay.
That's all right.
I was going to say, what Jim just said was exactly what my doctor told me at the colonoscopy. I mean, this is how intense it is. You got to be on top of this thing here. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was just going to say I've had the same issues in the Windows world because unfortunately I'm Windows. And even though that I use iPads, I try to set up, Focusrite through Windows. And that was one of my main problems. I spent days trying to get things to work sound wise. And it got to the point then where, I'm like, all right, I got to simplify things. I'm not going to worry about how perfect everything is. I just need to get, the lessons to the kids. And believe it or not, I mean, I've got my iPad right up here, above my camera for my windows. And I would say over half my students, I'm still on FaceTime. Okay. And it works perfectly. It's very simple. I'm just hitting a button. I call them, bam. We never have any sound issues. It's not going to be the quality, obviously, that we're looking for, but it communicates the lesson. They can hear a pad. They can hear basics, on the kit. I can hear them cleanly, and it's just very simple. So I'm probably going to move to a Mac myself. That'll be my next purchase, because I hear, that it is so much easier to use.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because Kevin McMahon, Kevin, thank you for your technical comments you always have. Gentleman's very with technology. He's like my student Christian Johnson, a great drummer who's living out in California. The Windows people, you can get the Windows stuff working just as well if you know your way around it, I guess. So, that's just an interesting comment. I know Kevin's very savvy with it. So, Kevin, go ahead.
So, Joe, I was just going to ask, you're using PreSonus interface?
I am. Yes, I have a 16.
With a Mac or with Windows?
I'm with a Mac I actually use a Mac for my music stuff here. I'm on the Mac now, but in my office I'm Windows, so I kind of have a little bit of both worlds. And I can actually say that StreamYard and all these platforms work exactly the same way, but I have not tried putting the Mac into the PreSonus in with Windows.
Gotcha.
Real quick, Jim, then I want to use it.
Yeah, I would say, not to dismiss Windows users, because there is a workaround. It's just when you do the Mac end of things with, let's say, with the Focusrite stuff, which I always recommend just because it's so plug and play, at least on a Mac. But on the Windows end, and there's a great video, and I'll find you this link too, Joe. And this is something that I'm moving away from software-based, external software or third-party software-based stuff for the Windows users. If they have a Focusrite interface, there's a piece of software called Focusrite Control that you use to set up monitoring. Well, for the Windows side, you can actually route within Focusrite Control all of your mics to one of the outputs so that your whole channel strip shows up on that one input. So you know how Skype uses input 1. On Windows, Zoom will use input 1 and 2. So you can actually route all of your input to one of those outputs inside of the software. So that's something, there is a video on that actually Zoom put up. And I'll try to get you that link, Joe.
And I just want to bring up one more comment from Kevin. Kevin, I did the same thing. He's talking about using his interface to double. If you're going to invest, why not invest in the stuff that you can use to do recording as well? So now I'm finally sending out tracks, and I'm using the same interface to do that as I am to do my online lessons.
Yeah.
So that's a great comment. And Murray, our man down in Baltimore, a great SEN member and one of the most enthusiastic guys I know on the scene. I would just encourage everybody, go back and read the comments again. There's just so many great pros here. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. The guys and girls who are on screen and off screen. We really appreciate it. So let's use the last few minutes we have to talk about Sabian, who's given us this platform. We always like to talk about our symbols and things like that. And you know what? Let's make it topical today. How about that, Dom? Let's make it topical. Let's talk about when your students are going to buy their first Sabians. How do you go about recommending symbols to them, and maybe what models for your first Sabians might you suggest to your students? So who wants to take it first?
I'll take it.
Dom, go ahead.
Boy, the first thing I start with them is I find out the age level and the dedication of that student. We've got to find out exactly where they're at. So, because that's going to affect the budget that they have. Obviously, a younger child, the parent is spending the money, they might be a little tighter with the budget. An older student that's really into it, they might be a little looser with their budget where they want to get something out of a higher quality. So I got to start with price first. With price, I'm able to then find out what the best line is for them and what symbols they need first. Obviously, a ride, crash, and hats, we start there. But I can tell you something. A lot of these young kids, they want an effect symbol also. They want a splash. They want a China cymbal. They want some kind of a Chinese hit that they can have, even if it's a smaller one. They want something like that they can have some fun with certain sounds. So you got to kind of really find and blend and do, kind of like a qualification of how much money, what kind of fun can they have with it, and then assist them with who then we would like them to purchase it from, whether it's going to be from a store in the area or whether it's online. So I kind of take them through price, then what product, then where to purchase. I try to give them the entire 5-cent tour.
Right. Tim, you want to talk about that a little bit?
You can see it right here. I would say probably every one of my parents of my students have invested in the quiet tones.
Oh wow, great!
Because I'll tell you what, in the homes it's amazing, especially with online now too. They certainly appreciate how nice and quiet they are. Other than that, I just love the B8 packages that Sabian has. It's a good starter pack. It's good for any of my kids. And you have to remember, my range, is anywhere from my youngest student being 4 years old, in most cases, up into high school, college age. I have a few older students, but they're just wonderful packages that Sabian has, and that's what I try to encourage.
That's great. Kevin, what about you?
Yeah, I was actually going to echo that. When the students or the parents are looking at getting them a kit, and I'll send them to the local drum shop, and we have a really good relationship. And those B8 packs are a great place to start. And then as they're moving on, especially like if you're working with the kids getting into middle school, going into high school, they're going to start maybe playing in jazz band. And there's nothing worse than playing, lots of jazz ride patterns on a ride cymbal that doesn't really sound good. So that's, if they're going to step up, effect cymbals are cool, but they're going to step up. That's kind of generally the first stage. I go, get yourself a ride cymbal that's not going to bug you to play. So as they're leaving the realm of the entry cymbals, you get a good quality sounding cymbal. But then the first, I guess, area to step up, I would suggest, particularly getting into the jazz realm, would be look at maybe a higher quality ride cymbal, so that you're not annoyed playing nonstop ride patterns on a cymbal that sounds like a plate, basically.
Yep, great advice. Great advice. Jim, what about you?
Could you share my screen for a second? I just have a goofy graphic up there, but I just want you to see it. So a while ago, little Rocco there, he was like 7. We shot a video of him demonstrating the B8X pack from Sabian. And so, I think the video's on YouTube. It's pretty funny because he actually reviews them and he talks about the budget and he talks about how they're sonically matched and how they're, hammered and all this stuff. But I usually recommend, at least for the beginners, we're always thinking budget. How much do they want to invest in this child's development? So the B8X packs are really great. And then, obviously if they're more serious or they've been playing for a while, I kind of take Kevin's idea, which is let's upgrade one at a time for specific reasons. So if they need a ride cymbal that's going to sound better, let's get that ride. I also like Dom's philosophy about, sometimes they just want a fun cymbal, like a China, something that's going to inspire them to hit the kit. So, that's a great way to go. But the B8X pack came with a free China at the time. And so it was this big setup of cymbals, and then Rocco got the set of cymbals. So, and he still has them.
That's great. That is great. Well, guys, there's a big event coming up, the Modern Drummer Festival. And my wonderful co-host, Mr. Dom Famularo, will be hosting, and so he has big planning events coming up. So we're gonna wind down today. So he has a very important session coming up, and we want to tell everybody to make sure you watch the Modern Drummer Festival coming up on the 12th.
Yes, it's September 12th. Go to moderndrummer.com to buy your ticket. All the proceeds are going to a Neil Peart Cancer Foundation and a scholarship in Neil's name. So what you invest in is you're investing into a fantastic cause. Every artist is doing this for nothing. They're pulling it in. We've got everyone involved. It's so exciting. We're going to have Chad Smith. We're going to have Mike Portnoy. I will be performing and hosting. sit down. We're editing it now. It's going to be anywhere from 90 minutes to 3 hours. So I would say fasten your seatbelt, sit down and watch this show. Again, go to themoderndrummer.com. Look at the packages they offer of what they have at this year. This will be exciting. It's a once-in-a-lifetime show.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys check it out. But before you do that, don't forget that Dom will be back on Thursday with the SEN Spotlight. And on the 11th, next Friday, we have the return engagement with the great Billy Cobham coming back with me and Dom. If you guys missed Billy and Dom with me the first time, first of all, I didn't say anything. Those guys are telling stories, jokes. Like I was just like, all I had to do was listen. I'll take myself off screen, but he was just so entertaining and fun. And we started talking about Miles Davis Bitches Brew, and he talked about it for 35 minutes. So we have a lot still to talk about. But I want to thank Jim Toscano, Tim Thompson, Kevin Lehman. Guys, thank you for joining Dom and I today.
Yeah, fantastic.
And
thanks
all
for
of
having us.
Our pleasure, absolutely. Thank you to Sabian, the Sabian Education Network. We're going to continue providing this great content and support for you guys. As always, what you want to do, if you haven't done it yet, go to sabianed.com, sign up for the network, make sure that you partake of the forum. I always post Jim's links, all of our speakers, all the links and PDFs are always there, all the past recordings. So go ahead in there, check it out. Everybody, have a great Labor Day weekend. We're wishing all of you a lot of success in this new school semester with your enrollment, all your students. Kick butt and type in your comments. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Great, guys.
Hey, guys.
Bye-bye.